Hey everybody, it's hwsteele, and today is August 30th, 2020, and in this video wait a minute, August 30th, 2020, that means today is the 88th anniversary of the last date in Gann's 1927 novel, The Tunnel Through the Air. That's pretty cool, and it affords me a wonderful segue opportunity to let you, the listener, know that this will be my last video on the 1927 novel, The Tunnel Through the Air. While I might reference that book of Gann's in other videos, I'm not going to do any more videos just on The Tunnel Through the Air. So this will be the last one. And it's probably going to be a little bit longer than my normal videos, but it shouldn't be too bad. So with that said, let's get to it. And of course my phone goes off. Sorry about that. I'll put it on silent right now. Normally I do that before I start recording. Today I didn't. So let's get to Tunnel Through the Air, shall we? Okay, so actually let's do this. This is Google Books. You can look it up yourself. And the book is called Catalog of Copyright Entries, New Series, 1927. I did a search for W.D. Gann. And here's how we know that Gann's book, The Tunnel Through the Air, was copyrighted in November of 1927. So that's how we know it wasn't published until November of 1927, because obviously they don't publish a book before they copyright it. So every time I reference the fact that Tunnel Through the Air came out in November of 1927, this is the proof of that. So if you're wanting a copy of this for your own personal collection, this is what you need to look up. All right, so let's get to Tunnel Through the Air, shall we? All right, before we actually dig into the book, I wanted to say a couple of things just to let you know that the purpose of this video, first and foremost, is to give you ideas of things that you should be doing to try and find the hidden secret that might just be in this book. If Gann's telling us the truth here, probably is. So that's the general purpose of this video. You know the old saying, give a man a fish, he eats for a day. Teach a man to fish, and he will eat for a lifetime. Well, that's the basic premise of this. Now, I'm not saying that this is every piece of coding methodology that you'll need to decode, but it is, in fact, a good chunk of what you need to start, or for some of you to continue after you've started and gotten stuck kind of stuff. So with that being said, I also want to say that the number 2 is important. Okay, the number 2 is important, and a lot of people get stuck into immediately going, oh, Gann made reference to 1 and 2 right there, so he's talking about octaves. And then that's it. They're like, okay, he's talking about octaves, and that's not necessarily the case. It can be, but it's not necessarily the case. See, the thing is, numbers have meanings. For instance, the number 1 means it's unity. You know, it's the so-called God number, things like that. The number 2 is the opposite. It's division. It's separation. Okay? It's also the number that's required for growth. Without division and separation, you cannot have growth. So that's why it falls into the whole octave scheme so beautifully. But that right there is what 2 of something is important, not just because of octaves, but because it's 2 of something, the division of it. It's the meaning of the number, like 3 is unity and harmony. I said number 1 is unity, but basically 3 is the harmony and 1 is the completeness, would be more accurate. So the point here is that the number 2 or 2 of something is important in meaning, not just because of the octavian nature that it may possess. Okay, so with that said, let's go ahead and get to, I got 6 pages of notes, 7 pages of notes here. So, okay, I already mentioned that. Last video mentioned that. So, all right, so let's go ahead and look at the very first page in Tunnel Through the Air. Now, the first thing, the first thing that we should be doing is counting. Gann talks in multiple places about how mathematics is the only thing that all civilization agrees on. The only thing. You know, there's an old saying, I don't remember it exactly, but basically everyone cries the same, everyone laughs the same, and everyone counts the same. So when you are studying any of Gann's stuff, always count. Always count. If you're not counting, then you're leaving out a lot of information that you could be getting to the so-called underlying stuff, the hidden information. So count the number of words, count the number of pages, count the number of paragraphs, count the number of instances of a word. Just count all the stuff like that. If you're not doing that, you're giving up information that you could have. And I know for some people it seems like, well, how in the world? Gann didn't have computers. How could he expect you to go through and count like this? And the answer is, the reality is that many old books, and I'm talking old all the way back to thousands of years, use the exact same methods that Gann was using in Tunnel to hide stuff. And one of them is how many times a word shows up. And it's not meant, you know, nowadays we have the computer, so we can look up a word and in half a second we have the answer of how many times it's in this book. Well, it wasn't hidden that way with the concept of being that easy to find. It was meant to be hard and to take a long time. And that's one of the reasons why I think there's so much problem with unlocking what's in this book, is because it's so easy to do, to find all this hidden information, that it overwhelms people and it winds up not holding the correct value. If you really had to work to get this information, number one, most people wouldn't put that effort forward. And number two, it would hold way more value to you than if you can just put a word in a search engine in a PDF file or something like that. So counting is important, and it should hold a tremendous value. You need to think in terms of 1927, how hard it would have been to find that information. Okay, so let's look at the very first chapter in this book and read it out loud. In the extreme northeastern corner of the Lone Star State of Texas, about 8 miles west of Texarkana, in a lonely farmhouse on Sunday morning, June 10th, Amelia Gordon turned over in her bed and watched the sunlight streaming through the window on the head of her newborn son. That's a long sentence, and that right there should be that should be a hint to you. That's a huge sentence. Gann has not the greatest grammar in the world in his writing styles, and he tends to do run-on sentences, but that might just be for a specific purpose. If you go through and count the number of words in this very first sentence in the book, you're going to find that there are 51 words in this sentence. But one of the words, Texarkana, was split in half to create 52 words. So there's 52 words in this sentence. There's actually 51, but again, one split in half, and it creates the 52nd word in this sentence. Now, Texarkana is a city that's on the border of Texas and Arkansas. And that city is literally in both states. It's in Texas, half of it, and the other half is in Arkansas. And interestingly, the state, or the city rather, is named after 3 states. The Tex is for Texas, the Ark is for Arkansas, and the Anna is for Louisiana, which it doesn't actually border, but it was named after those 3 states. So if Gann were to pick any word in this entire sentence that he wanted to split in half, Texarkana would be the absolute perfect word to do that with. So while it could just be a coincidence, it might not be a coincidence. So that's the kind of thing you want to make note of. And this also brings up a really good point here, and that is, if you don't know that Texarkana is on the border of 2 states, then you wouldn't realize that it makes the perfect word to do that. So look up places. Look up Texarkana, look up San Francisco. Find out a little bit about it so that you can have that information in your mind, and maybe some of that information would become helpful to you, and you might go, wait a minute,